Trying to sell these 6 products on Amazon FBA lost us both a bunch of money. And watching this video could save you tens of thousands of dollars because James is an 8-figure Amazon seller with over 10 years of experience. I've been doing e-commerce full-time for over 8 years, done over $5 million in online sales. And in this video, we're gonna share with you all the lessons we've learned, all the products that you should avoid selling on Amazon. So learn from our mistakes, learn what products to avoid, and make sure to smash the like button because this is James and I sharing a lot of lessons that we had to learn the hard way. So the first product that I'll share, which was a failure of mine, was jars. So if you don't know, I have a passion product called Performance Nut Butter. It's a macadamia coconut cashew blended nut butter. It comes in little pouches. Really delicious, really good. I launched this on Amazon and people were telling me you need to put this in jars. So I ended up putting it in jars. I ended up ordering around $10,000 worth of these jars, about 2,000 units, $10,000 total, so $5 a unit or so. And I wanted to be eco-friendly, so I did glass jars, which sounds like a good idea on paper, except for they ended up leaking like crazy. So I ended up only being able to sell 1,000 of them before I had to basically recall them from the warehouse. The cool thing I will note about this is that I ended up making my money back. So even though I only sold half my inventory, I was able to make my money back. And the lesson I learned from this is basically always test your product, make sure that it's not gonna have some kind of a major defect. And one thing I wanna add is you can have a product that fails on Amazon, but you still might be able to get your money back. And I think a lot of people are scared to sell a product on Amazon because they think, well, what happens if it fails? But remember, oftentimes, even in the worst case scenario, you end up at least being able to get your money back. And with that being said, let's go over to James's first product. And I do want to note at the end of this video, we are going to have James share his biggest Amazon failure. And this product ended up costing him over $150,000. But with that being said, let's get into the first product you'd recommend people avoid and all the lessons you learned.
Yeah, so for many reasons why to avoid this type of product. This product was an LED grow light. I actually came out with a whole line of them for home grow operations.
Obviously only for vegetables and gardening. Yeah.
So they're made in China. They're quite expensive to produce. We wanted to come up with custom casings and everything. But the problem with dealing with electronics, especially in the lighting category with China, is that they're going to come into the market really strong and it's going to be really difficult to compete against them because China will always compete on price. Not only that, they're able to iterate on the product. And this particular product required me to continue to improve and take customer feedback into consideration. So by the time I wanted to make a change in a product, it was 3 months. So China can make that decision in a couple of days and they can make any modifications. So ultimately, I ended up having to compete on price.
Yeah.
The product cost was about $100 retail. It was really hard for me to get my reviews and I ultimately had to call it quits on that.
And so I think there's a few different big lessons here is one, if you are competing against China on a product that you can't make way better than they can make it, good luck. And another thing is keep in mind, if you're trying to iterate on a product, if you've ever tried to do this with China, you have to go back and forth. It takes a lot of time where China themselves, they just go to their warehouse, they try out something new and they're going to be able to beat you with a product like that. So in total, how much did you spend on your production run and how much money did you lose or what was the?
So all told, I spent about $75,000 on this product and I ended up making a little bit over $7,000.
So even though this product was a failure, it wasn't a huge failure because he was able to recoup a lot of his costs, end up even being able to make a little bit of a profit. But obviously, it wasn't as big of a success. Like when you're starting a product on Amazon, your hope isn't just to make a few $1,000s, especially if it's $75 up front.
Yeah, you're not always going to be profitable, but especially if you're starting out, I'd consider this Amazon tuition.
And this is a big theme for this video is even a lot of times the worst case scenario fails, you end up maybe not losing that much money, maybe even making a little bit of money, but no matter what, you learn lessons along the way. So this will bring me to my next product that failed. And for those that don't know, my first company I started over 8 years ago was a dance clothing company with my mom. And for the first few years, we were just selling on our website. And then we heard about this thing, Amazon, and being able to do Amazon FBA. So we started selling these dance clothing items on Amazon. And this was probably about 5 years ago we started doing this. So one of the first products we put up there was leotards and bike tards, like all these different simple items. And we were doing really well until China. So this is another theme throughout this video is China can come in and they can undercut you. So we were selling products for $40, $50, handmade in the USA, really nice material. China came in and they undercut us. they were able to sell leotards for like $6, $10, ridiculously cheap. They were selling their products for cheaper than it cost us to make the material. Now, the thing about this is our products are probably higher quality, but it's hard to convey that over a product listing. And they look almost identical. So this is, to me, a big wake-up call that if you're selling basically the same product that China can sell and undercut you, and there's not a way to add a brand to it, there's not a way to really make it stand out and be better, it's not a long-term strategy because China's going to come in and undercut you. And I know you have a lot of experience with this as well.
Yeah, so my next product is going to be outdoor string lights. I'm sure you guys are really familiar with this. And the reason why I was into the LED category is because I had been successfully selling LED gel nail lamps for many years, and that was actually one of my first products. So I figured why not stay within the LED category because I was already so familiar with it. The problem was, again, China came into the market way cheaper, but also it was my own fault because I was really ambitious with this product. I made a lot of custom improvements. So you guys want to be careful about improving the product. And as a perfectionist, I really wanted to make this product amazing. And I had so many ideas on how to make it weatherproof and how to make it more user-friendly, how to make it look better. But that all adds up in cost and additional tooling. So my retail price for my string lights was about double what they were going for. And ultimately, I ended up seeing these string lights at Costco being sold for half of what they were being sold for on Amazon. So I had to call that one quits as well.
So I think, again, this is a point where you can ask yourself, can China do this better than I can do this? And if they can, I would probably avoid it. And maybe you can make some money in the short run. For instance, when I was selling the leotards and the unitards and all that kind of stuff, we still made money. And the cool thing about that product was, since it was handmade in the USA, we didn't produce large quantities. We only produced enough that we were able to basically recoup our costs. So when China did come in, it's not like we lost a bunch of money. With you and the string lights, how much money did you spend? Did you end up losing money?
Yeah, I spent about 50 grand on that. I made a little bit of money. We had some pretty good clients that were like hotels and commercial buildings, but I didn't lose any money, but I definitely had to say, okay, this isn't worth it anymore. And also, as a recommendation, it's not that sustainable to go for products that are really expensive.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. So, and I dealt with the situation where I started running out of stock and it took so long to produce this. I had to wait 2 to 3 months before I can finish the production and get them back over here. And by that time I was already out of stock online and or on my Amazon listing, and I was losing my rankings. Meanwhile, China, because they are the manufacturer, their cost is so much cheaper. They've got much deeper pockets. So if you guys are starting out, I would definitely recommend going for things that are really cheap. The added benefit is that the things that are cheaper oftentimes have much greater margins.
And I will say right now, so far, we haven't lost any money. Like, for the most part, we've at least broken even or made a little bit of money. But stick till the end. We've got a crazy, probably one of the craziest Amazon FBA stories I've ever heard. James is going to share with you at the end. So that next up brings me to another product I sold on Amazon. And again, this was with the dance clothing company. So we had a ton of different SKUs, a ton of different products we sold with the dance clothing company. And I actually have a manufacturing facility in my hometown. And so we would make different products all the time, test things out, which is really cool on one hand. But what we found is if we were making things that were relatively custom, because a lot of our stuff was made to order or somewhat custom, and we were using FBM, fulfilled by merchant instead of FBA. What we found is in the clothing category, especially with our products, they would order multiple sizes, multiple colors, just to see what size and color that they should keep, and they would return them. Now the problem is, since we were making these things like relatively custom, once they return them, we couldn't really do anything with it. And that is a problem. Amazon does have a 30-day return policy. Now, for most Amazon sellers, that's not going to be an issue, because if someone returns something, you can just put it back on Amazon and resell it. But because this was clothing, we had some issues. And the other thing that really sucks about Amazon returns is sometimes people would wear them. Like, we'd see sweat stains and they would return this item. And so I do want to say, be very careful about selling multiple different variants, multiple different colors, multiple different all these different options because some of them aren't going to sell that well and you might get returned. There's all kinds of issues.
I got a story about a cousin. He got into selling LED shoes. I don't know if you guys remember those with the light up bottoms on them. And just between the male and female sizes, it was 24 SKUs. One issue was that the factory forgot to include the USB cable in there. So he had to recall a ton of units, all the different sizes, and it just wasn't worth it.
And that's probably a good lesson too, is if you have a product that has lots of different little components and it's really complicated, probably avoid it. I know you recommend avoiding electronics for the most part.
Yeah, and also there's beauty in simplicity. And remember, when you make the decision to pull the trigger on a product, you're committing to a certain lifestyle. So you need to ask yourself the right questions. Is it going to cost a ton of money and your time and stress in customer service? But for me personally, I like to go for things that are really simple, more commodity-based products that are really difficult to be defective, really easy to manufacture, easy to ship, etc. Again, think about the type of life that you want to live, because if you make this decision, it could be a great life or it could be a really problematic one.
And one thing I want to say before we get into the final failed product, this is the big failure that James has experienced, is we did do a video over on James' channel, which I'll link down below, talking about how to be successful at Amazon. We talk about probably the #1 most important thing to having success on Amazon. I'll link that down below, but that gets us into the final product. So what was the final product, the biggest failure?
The biggest failure is, I'm sure you guys remember hoverboard scooters. You guys still might see them around, but we were one of the early ones who got into that, created a $100,000 order, got that product. It was really difficult to ship over because of the battery components and the certifications, et cetera, that was required. So a couple of really bad news stories about these things catching on fire and burning down homes. Later, they were banned on every marketplace out there: Target, Walmart, Sears, Amazon, eBay, etc. So that cost me a ton of money, a ton of time. My account ended up getting suspended. I had $100,000 in frozen deposits in Amazon. And 90 days later, I lost sales on one of my biggest Amazon accounts. Finally got all my money back. Had to go through the headache of recalling all the products. Once I got all the products back, it took me a year to get rid of these things through Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist.
And this is one of the craziest Amazon FBA stories I've ever heard. There's so many lessons in this story, and I'll link it right here. I highly recommend watching this full video and learning from the mistakes that James made with this product, because he learned a lot of lessons from that. So click on that video. We'll see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.